And so I read these documents, and it would take weeks and weeks and revisions from multiple directors and multiple people putting input to it and reviewing it and so on. And it's so much effort to get this document that then he spends 2 hours on, right? And it's a really costly document. That document is worth tens of thousands of dollars, right? Because of how expensive it is. Now, if you just duplicate that practice into another organization without having the sort of like the rest of the culture associated with that, it's not really going to fly very well because people aren't willing to spend that amount of time on it. People don't make decisions like that. It's a very long and slow process to change things to be a bit more like that. And so the organizations where I've seen where this has happened have been where places where senior management has had that interest in doing so, and they've slowly raised the bar of like what a good document is, and they're slowly raising it to a point where, okay, now we're having a really good conversation here. The document still wouldn't pass muster at Amazon, but it's actually really adding value in our context, in our organization. And I have one customer who's only 30 people, and they write documents. And the way that they do this is basically by making sure that they're getting something down, and it's a straw man document. It's got my thinking in there, but it's not polished. I've put an hour or two into it, but now we can have a conversation about the document. And now we get a good conversation, and it doesn't have to be a polished document because it's not going to Jeff Wilkie, right? So a lot of these things, like the trick is not to simply duplicate the system, but to figure out what's the principle at work here and how do I apply that principle to my specific problems. So there's two things going on. One is like if you duplicate it, that doesn't work. And the other one is that if you don't have a need to solve a problem, it doesn't matter whether the system works or not. It doesn't matter. That solution doesn't matter to you, right? So whenever I talk to customers about OKRs, like someone says, we'd like to do OKRs, I say, well, why? What are you trying to solve here, right? And I usually start the whole process with a discovery process of understanding from all of the leaders what their problems are, what they're trying to solve. And 99% of the time, there are other things that they need to do as well. So that's why we do things on metrics and on KPIs or metric stacks and other things. But sometimes it's literally like the reason to do OKRs is because I read a book and I thought it sounded awesome and I think we should do that. And Google's successful and we should do what they do. It's like, that's not going to get you anywhere, right? You've got the wrong expectation. You don't have the right motivation. Which, you're going to run out of steam. But just by the time we're getting started, you're going to run out of motivation to do this because you don't have a need. And so the same thing goes for the writing processes, for working backwards, for whatever it is. If you have a need and this solves the need and you can take the principle and apply it within your context, great. If you don't actually have a need, then don't do that. Do something else.